Hello, and welcome to an instructional video about how to edit the HUD in ezQuake. This video is primarily geared toward newer or returning players who are not familiar with editing the HUD. If you're already experienced with this, you probably know most of, not everything that I'm going to talk about. You may still learn something. There's a video from a few years ago linked to in the description where he goes over the basics. It's where I learned how to do most of this. I learned the rest through trial and error. And I'll go into just a little bit more detail in this video. So the first thing that you need to do is go in the console and type cfg _save _unchanged 1. Then cfg _save and put a name here. So my first HUD. And hit enter. So what you just did is you saved a backup config that has every single command as it is right now. And so that will have all of the HUD commands. So at any point in time, you can just load that config and you'll have your old original HUD. So if you make any changes and you don't know how to get it back, it's there. You can also do this throughout your editing by going cfg _save. You could do like HUD rev 1 or HUD revision 1, HUD rev 2, HUD rev 3, etc. as you make incremental changes. And that way, if you ever get to a point where you make some changes and you don't know how to get back to where you were, you have the backups. Okay, so these, when you save them, in case you did not know, they get saved in this. Let's get everything to be a little bit neater. The configs folder, nQuake, ezQuake, configs. There it is, my first HUD. Open that. Notepad file comes up. This is the config file. And here's the HUD section. So this has all the HUD commands of the HUD that you just saved. Easy. You can copy all of these and have a backup and reload this at any time, and it will go back to that HUD. Next thing you want to make sure you have is scr new HUD 1. That makes sure that you're running the new HUD elements from ezQuake and not the old status bar HUD. I will just quickly say, if you already like the appearance of your HUD and the layout, and all you want to do is change the size of everything, from the HUD to the console font to the menus, and you just want to make it all bigger or smaller at one go, the command for that is vid conscale. Default is 2. I'm currently on 4. If you make it 2, you'll notice everything just got smaller, right? Menus smaller now. Right? I made it 6, bigger. Simple. But again, that changes everything at once. Okay. So with those commands out of the way, there's two primary ways of editing the HUD. There is console commands, which is my preferred method, and it's the one that I'll be teaching in this video. The other is through the HUD editor GUI, which I am not as familiar with. But if you type HUD editor into the console, it brings up this GUI. It has these instructions at the beginning, and if you want to use this, that's totally fine too. I prefer the console commands just because they're more intuitive to me and they allow for more precision, and you can make the HUD modular. Shout out Nancy. So you have that, you type HUD editor in the console. You can bind that to a key. And what this does is it brings up all the elements with these green boxes around them. Now, this is important even if you're going to use console commands, because when you hover the cursor over this green box, you see it shows the name of the element that you're editing. So there it says game clock. That's the game clock element. Health, base, armor, etc. So if there's ever an element you see on screen and you want to edit it through a console command, but you don't know the name, you would go into HUD editor, hover over it, and it will tell you the name that you then use in the console commands. Once you learn the names, this isn't necessary, but when you're beginning, when you're just starting out, it's very helpful. One last command to know about before we get started is HUD recalculate. So HUD recalculate is like refresh. So there are certain commands that you'll enter in the console that will take effect immediately as soon as you enter them. And then there's some that will not take effect until you use HUD recalculate. So if you ever enter a command into the console and you don't see it take effect, then just hit HUD recalculate and you should see it. Again, you can bind this to a key. So like I have it bound to 0. So anytime I'm making edits, if I exit the console and I'm like, wait, it didn't work, I just hit 0. It should work. All right, so now to the actual tips about editing. So editing the HUD in ezQuake is kind of like a collage. It's not really a painting or drawing. It's everything is pasted on top of each other and pasted on the screen. So why this matters is you can glue elements to other elements to group things together, and there are groups. So HUD group 1, for example, and there's group 2 and 3. There's 9 of them. And you can glue things to them with a command called place, which I'll explain in a minute. And that will allow you to set up a group of elements together in a way that you like, and then move them all together later. So from a quick example, down here at the bottom, I have group 3, which is like my status bar, where I have the armor, the health, and the ammo. And if I click and drag group 3, you see they all move together, right? So there's that. Okay. So again, kind of like a collage. If you glue things together, they stay together. So there's 4 commands that are the most important commands and are universal, and we're going to discuss those. So using the console, you would type HUD and then the element that you're going to change. Remember, you get the name of the element from the green box here. So for example, health, game clock, face, right? HUD, game clock, that's the element that you're going to change. You hit tab and you'll see all of the options and the commands there available for HUD game clock. So you can go through and experiment with them and see what each one does. But there's all of them and their current values. If you want to know what a command does, for example, you can type it in, and then without entering any value, you just hit enter, and ezQuake will tell you what either the different options are or what the command does. Okay. So the 4 most important and universal commands that kind of apply to all elements are place, align, pause, and scale. So HUD game clock, place. It's currently on the health bar. So place is where you are gluing the element to. So if HUD game clock is a little piece of paper and you glue that to the canvas, that's what the place would be. So if I put place screen, that's gluing it to the screen. That's the very base canvas. It's not glued to any other element. It's just glued to the screen. HUD place is something that requires HUD recalculate to take effect. So when you want to attach things to one another, you would put the first element that you want, HUD that element, and then place, and then the second element that you want, right? So I'm doing screen for right now. Next up is HUD align. Oh, and one more note about HUD place. Because it's like a collage, whichever you place it on, the thing that is being placed will appear on the top. So HUD game clock, place, health, for example. Let me just set this up so you can see. Right, okay. So if you look down at the health now, the game clock is drawn over the health number. It's literally on top of it. But if I were to put a game clock place screen, that puts it in the middle because of the align commands. I'll explain in a sec. And then if I put HUD health place game clock, now you see the health is on top of game clock instead of the game clock being on top of the health. So whichever one is placed on the element goes on top, like bringing it forward or bringing it back in digital design, right? Okay, so don't worry about that. Okay, so the next one is align. So the way HUD align works is align X is aligning it where you placed it. This is directly related to place. So align X is on the X axis, align Y is on the Y axis. Now this is a little bit non-intuitive, but once you know, you know. So align X before would be on the left outside of the element that you're gluing it to, whereas align X left is on the left inside. So this graphic on the screen shows what the different options are, right? Before is on the left side for X, and on after would be on the right side. For Y, before is above and after is below. If you want it on the inner top, it's top, inner bottom is bottom. And then center is center, right? So that's align. And then the next command is pos. So pos X and pos Y. This is like position. It moves the element a small amount or big amount. This is value in numbers. Positive number for X moves it right. Negative number moves it left. For Y, a positive number moves it down and a negative number moves it up. This is best used for small incremental changes just to kind of get something looking perfect exactly the way you want it, whereas you would use the command previously, align and place, to tie things together and put them where you want them. I'll do a demo in a few minutes and you'll see what I mean. The last one is scale. Scale controls the size of the element. Very simple. I currently have this at 0.85. This is the game clock in the middle of the screen. If I make it 2, it's bigger. That's all it does. All right. So those are the 4 commands. I'll just briefly touch. You notice some commands will have an align that doesn't have an X or a Y after it. And that is a text alignment. So just like in a word processor, if you align left for the health, what that means is that those health numbers, that 100 at the bottom, as I lose health, the numbers will shift to the left of the element. So you saw they're kind of to the left, whereas the 8 is still right up next to the plus. Whereas if this were aligned right, you saw it moves over to the right side of that element. Centered would be centered. And then when I go down to 1 digit health, if I can get this without dying, probably not. Well, if you go down to 1 digit health, it changes again. You get it if I fall from up here. But anyway, so that is the align without an X. It's only on certain elements that have these numbers. See, so it stays in the center. Okay. Or align left and right. Okay. So again, look through the commands, look at the options, and mess around, see what they do. Again, you can do HUD health tab _ tab, and then see all the commands that you have options for, like frame, do a background, frame color, the color of the background, right? Item opacity, you can draw transparency, how many digits you want it to draw, etc. Okay, so I will just do a quick demo of how to use these commands to make things line up so that you can see what I mean and why they're useful. So now you see my HUD. This is a HUD I made for this, which is just the health, the armor, and the ammo at the bottom. And it's not looking good, right? So I'm going to make it look like my HUD was a second ago. So first, we're going to start with the face, which is that little green plus. HUD face place, you see it's currently set to screen, and align X is center, align Y bottom. So that means on the X-axis it's in the middle, and on the Y-axis it's on the inner part of the element, so the inside of my screen, not off the monitor, and it's on the bottom. But if I want to move it to the health, I would do HUD place health, and now it's glued to the number that's behind it, that 100, which is the health. And if I do HUD recalculate, you'll notice nothing changes because it's still X center, Y bottom. And so it's still that location on the health. Now if I did HUD face align X before, and now it will move that plus to before the health number on the X-axis when you do HUD recalculate. See? Moves the plus before the health. HUD face align Y is bottom, so it's currently hovering a little bit below. If I make it center and do the HUD recalculate, that moves it up just a little bit to be the middle of the health, right? You might say it's not perfectly in the middle. Okay. HUD face pass Y -1 moves it up just a little more. Now it's perfectly in the middle. All right. Sorry, quick drink. So now let's say I want to move the armor numbers over. So HUD armor. Again, the way to know which element name, you hit the HUD editor and you hover over it and it will tell you the name. So HUD underscore armor underscore place, currently on the screen, but I could tie it to the face instead. But you'll notice if I do HUD underscore align, no, not align, armor underscore align, it's still left and bottom. That's not what we want. We want X to be before. And we want Y to be center. And then I do HUD recalculate, and boom, it moves that armor number over to the face. HUD I armor place armor. HUD I armor align X before align Y center. HUD recalc. Moves that over. HUD I ammo. This is going to be the little shotgun shells. Place health, because we're going to tie it on the right side. HUD I ammo. Align X after, because it's going to be on the outer right side. We still want to do Y centered. And then we do HUD recalculate, moves it over there. Again, I hit 0 because I have it bound. HUD ammo. Place I ammo. Instead of screen, which it currently is, we put it on the element, the icon. HUD ammo. Align X after. Align Y center. Recalculate. Boom. So now everything is in a line and everything is connected. So now if I move HUD health, remember everything's kind of tied to health. HUD health, move it up, we'll move it up. Everything moves together. Right? Say you want some distance between them, you could go to the armor, pass X, move it 30 over to the left. Right? Go to the ammo icon, pass X, 30 to the right. Now you got some space, but again, everything is still lined up in connection to the health. So anytime I move the health, all of those numbers stay together. Right? Okay. So you get the idea. You can go through with the different elements and tie things together and make things that you want. You can make a scoreboard, ammo counter, status bar like this. You can put it all together in one group at the bottom or at the top or in the middle, wherever you want. Okay. So up until now, I have primarily been talking just about layout. And I do just want to say one last thing about layout, and that is that simplicity is a virtue. It's very easy to overcomplicate the HUD. There's probably a picture on Discord somewhere of an old HUD I had that was really ugly. You know, in the middle of a game, all you need is a few simple things, and they should be easy to see, easy to read, and quick. You know, however you want that to look for you is how you want it to look for you. I'm not going to say anything's wrong, but you know, simplicity is a virtue. Okay. And you can put HUD commands in aliases. So for example, if you have an alias to pull out the axe, you'll notice it says 0 at the bottom there. But if you don't want it to say 0, you could put HUD underscore ammo underscore show 0, which makes that number go away. You could put that whole command into the alias for pulling out the axe. And so anytime you pull out the axe, it'll disappear. Then you put HUD underscore ammo underscore show 1. You put that whole command into every individual alias you have for pulling out a weapon, and it will make it reappear when you pull out a weapon. The way I have this working for me is I don't have the view model appearing, my weapon view model, but I do switch weapons manually, and I just shoot with mouse 1. So when I pull out the RL, if you're looking on the right side of the screen, the RL moves to the left. When I switch to the LG, LG moves to the left. And that's just how I know which weapon I'm holding. There's always 2 ways to do something. So HUD gun is the same. It will tell you what gun you're holding. So you see at the very top there a little RL appeared. I have to move it to the middle for you to really see it. Not minus. Whoops. Okay. There it is. RL in the middle. Switch to LG. It says LG. So I could put that somewhere on my screen and have it say that instead, right? Different options. There you go. Okay. So that is kind of HUD layout and different things you can do. I'm going to talk now about how to change the actual look of the graphics. So one last thing very quickly, the groups. So like group 7, for example, is my ammo counter on the right. Those are controlled with width and height for the size. So the width is currently 56. If you watch the ammo counter on the right, if I make it 150, you see that box gets much wider. Right? So you can use groups to add backgrounds because you can add a frame to the group and change the frame color. And you can also add pictures to the groups. So I'll just start with this as I'm getting into changing the graphics. A caveat, some rule sets and tournaments do not allow adding pictures onto groups because you could add a picture that would conceivably give you an advantage, like a list of item timers, which is considered cheating. So if you're going to play in any tournaments or any competitive matches, know the rule sets that you're playing under and conform to those rule sets. You know, that's for you to learn, you to decide. But if you're going to put a picture on a group, HUD group 7 picture. So you put the file name. So in this case, for me, it is ammo. And then you just make sure that pick alpha is greater than 1 so that it, or greater than 0 so that it shows. And you put the picture you want to use. Went to the wrong folder. There we go. In this folder, ezQuake, QuakeWorld, GFX. So there's the ammo picture right there. So that's the picture that that group is showing. All it is just some texturing, just to give it a little background, just because I think it looks cool. That's it. Does absolutely nothing else. So you can put any picture in there, like I said, but you know, don't cheat. Follow the rule sets of whatever tournaments you're playing in. Okay. Next is charsets. So the text, the font here in the console or in the menus, this is all controlled with the charset, a character set, an abbreviated charset like that. This is controlled with the GL console font command. So mine is currently Nuffa mod 2. It's a slightly tweaked version of Nuffa's charset. The default for ezQuake is Povo 5, which should look familiar to everybody. Right? Yeah. Our smooth text adds a little bit of aliasing to the text. If you don't like that little bit of blurry, you do our smooth text 0. You see everything gets a little bit more crisp. Right. So charsets are in this folder, ezQuake QuakeWorld textures charsets right there. You just put the file there, and then when you enter that file name into the console font command, you will get that charset. If you go to this website, gfx.quakeworld.nu, there's tons of charsets you can choose from. You just download the file, put it in that folder. If you download it from ezQuake, you probably already have a bunch of these in there that you can choose from and see what you like. Some are old and are small, like based on smaller resolutions. They're 256-bit, and they might not look good on 1080p or 1440p monitors. But like the more newer ones or anything that says 512, that will look good in 1080p, 1440p. Also on this website, you can get HUD elements. So the big numbers that appear on the HUD, the armors, the armor icons, the ammo icons, the power-up icons, all of these numbers. You can download different options here from things people have made over the years, right? Different face options, right? Right. Kenny from South Park's a cool one. You can also make your own. This website, tools.quakeworld.world. You can go in here and edit these numbers and download the files individually. You can also pick from different fonts or add a font from Google Fonts. On this website, you can also make simple items, textures. This is where I got the armors. And you can make like player skins and weapon models and such. So a very cool website there. The big numbers that you saw here, right? These numbers, if you want to change those are all controlled in the WAD. So they're individual files. Right, you download the files and then just replace them in here. Again, always make backups so that you can always revert back to things if you lose them. So like here I have my numbers, white and red. Red is for when I get low on health or armor. The face icons, this is where the plus comes from. Anytime I take damage, it flashes one of these red X's for the pain state, just to tell me that I'm taking damage in that moment. These are the ammo ones, and then all the weapon icons, right? So those are all there. And then, yeah, the GFX is where you have the pictures for the groups. Yeah. So I think that's pretty much it. It's very customizable, as you can see. It's kind of addicting to edit the HUD when you start doing it. You can really personalize it, but again, simplicity is a virtue. And yeah, if you have any questions, you can put them in the comments below, and I will do my best. If you haven't already joined the QuakeWorld Discord, if you're in North America, the North America QuakeWorld Discord, definitely join. I'll put links in the description. Both of those Discords have help desk, tech support type channels where you can ask questions, and people with a lot more knowledge and experience than me will be able to answer your questions. Yeah. Good luck. Get quad. Peace out.